Welcome to Business Coaching Secrets with Karl Bryan. If you want to attract new high-end coaching clients, fill live events, and build a wildly profitable coaching practice where business owners pay, stay, and refer, you've come to the right place. In this podcast, Karl provides his keys to the kingdom for finding and signing high-paying clients and building the coaching business of your dreams. Here we go.
Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Business Coaching Secrets, where we decode the art and science of building a thriving coaching business. Let's see what's in store today with none other than your host, with the most, as they say, the road dog, and of course, the legend himself, Dr. Karl Bryan. Welcome to the show, Doctor.
Not a doctor, ladies and gentlemen, not a doctor. How are you, road dog? What's going on, Shoots? What's happening?
It's been a while since I called you a doctor, so I figured you were due. So there you are, Shloot.
Nice.
What is going on in the glamorous lifestyles of the rich and famous, as they say, of Karl Bryan? What's going on there, big guy? And any shark sightings lately? What's going on?
No, as you know, man, I had some pretty serious hernia surgery, 5th surgery on the same hernia. And anyways, but I'm recovering good. I'm back with my family, man. I was away for 5 weeks because, again, couldn't travel after it. Yeti. It's a 6-hour dealio. And but anyways, man, we are back, and I am very happy to be home, man. Very happy to be home. So that's what's going on, man. Not a lot. There's just no e-foiling and no surfing going on for at least a couple of weeks. We'll see how we're going. So anyway,
I was watching the women's World Curling Championship, which Team Canada, congratulations to the Home and Empire, reigns once again. But they were doing a draw to the button, and I was like, speaking of buttons, did KP get his belly button back? I heard a rumor.
Did I? No. Okay. So serious, okay, this is serious. People will laugh at this. But the guy, so he finishes 6 hours of surgery. I wake up, I'm still doped up, and you're staring at doctors and they're trying to have this very somewhat serious conversation with you. And I'm just like, I'm not comprehending any of this. But he said to me, right, because again, for those listening, I did have my belly button taken away from me. But he said to me as I woke up, is like pretty much the first, we were nearly going to build you a belly button, but it was getting a little bit long and we felt like we had to, finish things up. So you don't have a belly button still. And there you go. So anyways, we're finished and I'm leaving. And he said to me, if I want to come back in a year, he will build me a belly button. And I am not kidding. And I'm currently in contemplation as to whether or not, being the only guy at the beach without a belly button, that's kind of cool. So it's a talking point.
That, or you're just a local freak. Whatever. Right? We've all seen the Goonies. We know what this is about. Hey, speaking of big decisions,
Yes,
getting a belly button. But in all seriousness, though, so as you and I, we had a bit of a chat before the pre-show, even, and that I'm sort of, I'm kind of weighing out a big decision, and I thought it might be valuable for anybody listening that also is sitting there kind of on a big decision and looking for a framework. Do you have, I know you do, but give us your framework. I just think it'd be a great value add for everybody.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Your big decision on the cards, you're going to start a business. You're going to take on, instead of taking on 15 clients, you're going to take on a big mammoth client. I don't know if that's going to fall under the big decision, like you're maybe framing this. But at the end of the day, you're forced with a big decision, right? And again, depending upon situation and the little red arrow, you are here, decide what that is. And by the way, your clients, they are constantly weighing up, big decisions. And I don't need to meet them to know what they are not doing is they're not putting it through a process or a framework. But it's real simple. You got a big decision to make. You ask yourself 3 questions and legitimately spend some time and, do the work, quote unquote. Question number one is, what is the upside? Question number two, what is the downside? Question number three, can I live with the downside? That's it. And again, do the work, spend some time, don't complicate it. Remember, simplicity scales, complexity fails. Again, frame. You've got a big question, big decision that you need to make. Those are the three questions that I run through consistently. I have done that with countless business coaches around the world. That's what you do. What is the upside? What is the downside? Can you live with the downside? So there you go, Shoots.
Love that. That is golden. Hey, listen, I actually just this morning put together sort of a high-end offer, a high-ticket offer, and I just, like when it comes to selling it, I guess, right, and closing on a high-ticket sort of high-end sale, I just thought, well, hey, I got an opportunity here to ask KB, do you have any advice on how to close a high-ticket sale?
I do, Shoots. First of all, the best way best way to have a good idea, the best way to have a great idea is to have lots of ideas. Okay. So the best way to close a deal is to have lots of people to close on your deal, right? Volume, do the work. The more hands you shake, the more money you make, right? So again, that's part of it. But apart from the obvious, and we've covered this, many times in the past, I would say this. In traditional sales training, they're always teaching you to get an I agree, right? Or yes. Because if somebody says yes, 10 times, and then you say, hey, do you want to buy? Your chances of segueing that into another yes significantly greater, right? So, and obviously an I agree is better than a disagree, right? But a far better thing to have them say, if I was building, a high ticket offer, you want them to say, that's amazing. I've never thought of it like that. That's, versus I agree. That's amazing. I never thought of it like that before. Right. So like in marketing and sales, saying something in a clever way will give it more power. Okay. Because it becomes part of the story. Or back to Les Brown. What does Les Brown say? He says, never make a point without a story and never tell a story without a point. Right. So like as an example at focus.com, right? So we use our profit acceleration simulator to demonstrate small incremental gains in multiple areas, right? You only need 3 numbers from the business owner, the chiropractor, the dentist, the butcher, the baker, the candlestick maker, right? You need to know their revenues, their gross profit, and their net profit. And by the way, if they don't have those, you just populate it with average numbers in their industry that, again, my software would provide you, or you just make up, right? Like 50% gross, 10% net, 50% gross, 20% net. I just create, what I mean? Just use average numbers, right? So the simulator then creates a compounding financial effect, and they'll always look in disbelief when they see the outcomes. And what do they do when they look in disbelief? They want to know more, right? Like the question they've got is, how do the profits get so big so fast when they use the simulator or you use the simulator on them, right? Because why? They've never seen it laid out like that before. So again, rather than get them to agree, they go, wow, I've never seen it like that. And how does that work? So your frame is, rather than get them to agree, get them to say, wow, I've never heard of explained like that before, right? I've never seen it demonstrated. Think you're at Costco, you're at the shopping mall, and it's like a demonstration going on. I've never seen it demonstrated like that before. Very super powerful versus just doing the mundane and, more money, more profit, more leads, etc. You want to change that because again, when you do that correctly, it creates curiosity, which is what you want in sales. It creates positioning. It creates authority, right? So that's frame that I would give you. I would also be remiss if we're talking about closing. So I'm not so much talking about selling like a high ticket offer online now. What I'm talking about is selling, just closing high level coaching. there's different status levels. And again, we've covered these in the past, but I believe it's one of the ultimate hacks for closing high-end coaching. And you've got higher, you've got equal, and then you've got lower, right? Like 3 frames. And then you'll naturally take the frame when dealing with a small potatoes operator of, the higher frame, right? But then if you've never built a $10 million, $25 million, $50 million company, and then you're sitting with somebody who's got a $50 million company, I would dare say you will naturally and organically fall into the lower frame. Okay. But if you're dealing with the higher end, what we're talking about is higher ticket here, you've got to take the higher frame to close the higher end operator, right? Otherwise, look, why would they hire you, and why would they, pay you to guide them, right? But by the way, very important, don't spend all of your time in the higher frame. That's not what I'm saying, right? Super successful people don't want to be talked down to, right? So that's why you see, like back in the day, I think Grant Cardone, again, he's made some strides. But back in the day, I would dare say, if you watched him and the way that he spoke and his mannerisms, his language, it was all kind of talking at you. It was all talking down to you. And then if you look at his audience, you will see that as a general rule, he had less successful people following him. Tai Lopez, the same thing. He's running around with pretty girls and that sort of thing. He ended up with an audience of, 18 and 19-year-olds for a long time, right? So anyway, so you want to be vulnerable. You want to be authentic when closing your prospects, right? So I'm not saying don't be authentic, don't be real. But you do need to understand that there's a lower, there's a equal, and then there's a higher frame. And again, as a framework, spend 10% of your time in the higher frame, 10% of your time in the lower frame, and then 80% of your time in an equal frame. And you can do that with copy. You can do that, with your language. You can do that with your presentation. That's why Tony Robbins starts his presentation. Within like minutes of starting, he will always, quote unquote, tear himself down. Right? Why? He's trying to bring him down to your level, because we're all in the room and there's 5,000 people, and he's, 5 feet elevated on this big stage with cameras everywhere, and, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. He tears himself down to bring him back into equal footing, right? You've got challenges. Well, I've got challenges. So anyway, Shoots, that's my answer, bud. What do you think?
Okay, so I'm gonna put you on the spot completely, because I know you absolutely love it, and I never get backlash from you after the podcast when I do this. Local business owners, okay, when you say relate, like if you say like Tai Lopez, the way that he, like 19-year-olds, all that sort of stuff. Have you found because you also close a lot of coaches to join the community at Focused, but when it comes to actual business owners, like, so for our coaches, is there something you found of how local business owners like to be sold to, or like, or like you know what I'm saying? Like, is there something there?
Well, okay. Well, you got to have, you need to have authority, you need to have positioning, and you need to evoke curiosity, right? There's things they know, there's things they know they don't know, and things they don't know they don't know. You've got to connect things they don't know with things that they do know, right? So when I was coaching hockey in Australia, instead of using hockey, like, Wayne Gretzky is the example, which they never heard of the guy, I used cricket, and I would show them basically, here's how you hit, with, like, you ever seen, like, they're watching on TV, they've all seen their favorite player, call it Ricky Ponting for the sake of the argument, who's an absolute legend. I would use Ricky Ponting batting in cricket with the way that I would then teach them how to do a snapshot, wrist shot, etc. But answer, Shoots, is without question, local live event is the best way to do it, because it gives you the positioning, it gives you the authority, and then it gives you the ability to connect things they don't know with things that they do know. And then they say to themselves, this is somebody that I want to connect with that could teach me something that I would ultimately be willing to buy. So,
okay, so follow up is coaching. Is hockey in Australia the equivalent to coaching surfing in Greenland?
Maybe.
You got to get your start somewhere, Shoots. I'm proud of you, just so you know. Speaking of I don't even know how to transition this. Zen thought. Let's do that one because we do it. It's a fan favorite. Shoots. Everybody loves the Zen thought. So the Zen master himself.
Well, the feedback says, and we both know it, but I tend to go very off topic of Zen. But anyways, it's
by the way, you definitely lost your Buddha shape. Like, you know, you used to look a lot more like Buddha, but here we are.
There you go. Actually, you know what? I was thinking about this morning as I was walking. This is something that I like. Humans were built to spend 80% of their time outside, right? I would dare say now the average person spends 20% of their time outside. So I was just walking the beach like bare feet on the grass. Like, you know, in this instance, I was on the sand, right? It's absolutely got power. And again, if you go back, you know, 500 years, again, we didn't have shoes, right? We were designed to be walking. I just think going for a walk in bare feet on the grass, on the sand, on the dirt, right? Again, yeah, you're going to get dirty feet. You can just have a shower. It's okay. So there was just something I just like a barefoot 30-minute walk in the sun with your shirt off can provide countless benefits to your overall health and vitality. And I want to really encourage people to really buy into that. And by the way, you know, and you know, some parts of the world at different times of the year, it's not possible. Totally get it. But you know what? Going for a walk in the snow, going for a walk in the rain, again, will have a lot of power. You're probably not going to do that in bare feet. Maybe you will. Probably should. Might be a good idea. But it's just got, you know, it's got magic. You want to age with grace, right? Like our time is so limited, right? Like you're writing a book. Why do you write a bestseller? You know, age with mischief. Don't age to conform, you know, like age, like count up the good times, or not count up, but create good times, create big goals, create big targets, create recurring income for yourself, create a high net worth, and don't hide behind the fact that it's more difficult for you than somebody else. Like build up a high net worth. If you want something bad enough from an insatiable inner drive, you can have it, you know, freedom. But again, everybody's looking to accomplish freedom, but the difference is that my definition of freedom and Road Dogg's definition of freedom and your definition of freedom are going to be different. You know, like have the audacity to do XYZ, have lots of friends, be super duper social, you know, instead of trying to get invited to the party, throw the party, right? You decide who comes as opposed to wonder if you're going to get invited. Right? Like age with an interesting story to tell. I just say that I was thinking about as I was walking, you know, I was like age with grace. But when I say age with grace, that's the opposite of conformity. I think, if you know what I mean, like you wouldn't be an entrepreneur and you wouldn't be a business coach if you weren't looking to move the needle, if you weren't looking to do something cool, right? So create an interesting story and then quite frankly, tell it, and surround yourself with people. The happiest people in the world are the most social people. And this comes a little bit. I just spent 5 weeks with my dad in Mexico, and I've got to tell you, his social life is significantly better than my social life. And I don't have a bad social life. I could certainly have a better one. But I got to tell you, he has got, the phone is ringing, the messages are coming through. He's getting invited to this. He's got somebody dropping in, and he sits back and, you know, has a coffee with them and chills. You know, he goes AA, you know, his thing is AA. You know, so he goes to an AA meeting every single day. Well, when I say every single day, absolutely most days he goes to an AA meeting, and it's very social, and he's around other people, not Facebook. What fast food is to your diet, social media is to socializing. All right. It's when you eat fast food, you just end up hungrier. All right. There's nutrients are just not there. While social interaction on Facebook, you just crave. And this is speaking through you to your clients and to your children, for that matter, and your parents and your grandparents, etc. Anyway, so I don't know. That's just what I was thinking this morning as I went for a little walk on the beach. And I would finish this with, and one of the things I was doing is I was going for a walk this morning, barefoot in the sun, no shirt on, just my shorts, to do. Kids running for the hills as they see the guy with no belly button, may or may not be happening. But there's I was just thinking about, decisions, right? Decisions. Like there's benefit in every decision you make, right? What most people that live in an unhappy state and find themselves frustrated for elongated periods of time, they're not making the decisions they know they need to make. So you want to be Zen. I think that embodying the ability of making decisions quickly will help you wildly. Make hard decisions quickly and then adapt. If you don't get the outcome, you don't get the result. You adapt on the fly, commit to doing so, and you're off. So that's my answer, Shoots. That's my answer. That's my Zen thought.
So can I expand on your Zen thought for a second? Like just on again, there seems to be some sort of theme here about making hard decisions. But how to make hard decisions quickly? Like, that seems like a pretty big task.
Yeah, but not making a decision makes you weak, right? Like, do you want to be weak? And what decision do you need to make? Like, your client knows some decisions they need to make the phone call, set the appointment, go to the doctor, pull up the staff member not following through on X, Y, Z, right? And then as a frame decision, do what's right? Do what's right. Use that as your frame. Be willing, whenever making a decision, or, what they say about a negotiation, the person willing to walk away has got all the power, right? Go into that. When you make a decision, be willing to walk away metaphorically. Be willing to look stupid. Be willing to accept the no. But don't be willing to be or to allow yourself to feel weak. Like, anxiety is something that I've always had to deal with it, right? So it stems from my big brother committed suicide when I was 16 years old, and my dear mother kind of, drinking herself to death in front of me at a young age, right? Like, so when dealing with your clients, you need to help them manage two things: anxiety and courage, which I believe to be the polar opposite of one another. Anxiety, courage in business is taking uncertainty and risk and just dealing with it, right? Again, making hard decisions from a place of strength, despite not knowing what will happen, right? So courage is making that hard decision, knowing that you are uncertain as to what the outcome might be, but making it anyways, right? Anxiety is the exact same, you get the exact same issues, the exact same problems, the exact same risk, and that you're dealing with, but you don't make them, right? So make hard decisions from a place of strength, despite not knowing what could happen, right? So by not making the decision, you're allowing the unknown, let's call it the risk, steal from you your strength to make the needed decisions to take the action. Like in business, your clients have to deal with risk, by the way, if I were to define it, it's just the unknown, not knowing what will happen, right? Like, will it work? Will it make a profit? Will it sell? Is the price point too high? Will the partnership pan out? Will it be a positive outcome? Will they say yes? Will they shut the door? Will I feel like an idiot? Right? And so what causes anxiety in business is when you treat the unknown as anxiety in business is when you treat the unknown as something that's supposed to be known, right? So from that place, you'll experience anxiety. Again, when you're thinking that the unknown should be known, right? And by the way, and in some cases, not just anxiety, but potentially crippling anxiety. Anxiety makes you weak. It literally, it eats at your soul. And again, it is something that I have dealt with from as a very young man. And into my, just to say that I do not deal with anxiety anymore would be gross. You know what I mean? I just, anxiety is something that I just manage, but I don't let it own me. And the way that I don't let it own me is that I make the decisions, right? So translation here, I just want to make sure, like, you and your clients must operate from a place of strength to make good business decisions. You'll always make a bad decision when you're in a weak place, right? So if it doesn't work out, you just got to be comfortable that you'll change course, that you'll adjust, that you'll modify, that you'll find a way, right? And that comes back to the frame of, don't commit to doing your best, commit to doing what it takes. Those are two very different things. Your best is not good enough in many cases. You got to commit to doing what it takes. So that, I guess, the solution to all this shoots, you got big decisions and whatnot, and they need to be made, and our clients need to make them, and the coaches' clients need to make them. Again, the butcher, the baker, the candlestick maker. You got to treat the unknown as something you'll manage, and agree to yourself that you will create options and alternatives in order to create the future that you desire. Right. And again, and that will create an environment where you're acting from courage. Courage makes you strong. It makes you decisive, exact opposite of anxiety. And by the way, like, how do you want to make uncertain decisions in your business? Like, do you want to make them from a place of weakness, or do you want to make them from a place of strength? Do you want to make them from a place of anxiety? Or do you want to take them from a place of courage? Right. So the solution shoots, just when in doubt, make a hardline decision and place all efforts, energy into the positive outcome from that decision. If it doesn't work out, have solace in the fact that you're going to adjust on the fly and just continue to work towards your desired outcome. And you're willing to walk away with nothing. If it all falls apart, you're just going to keep going, and that you will be fine. Right. It's like, trend. And I'm just thinking, as a business coach, we're just mentioning live events, right? Like, just announce your live event from the place of, I'm going to change some lives as a result of running this event. Or you could make the decision from, I pray I can get enough people to actually follow through on the seminar, on the workshop, on the live event. You know what I mean? Two completely different places. You want to make it from the place of, I'm going to change some freaking lives, and I'm going to make a dent, and I'm going to get more referrals than I can count. So that as I continue to do these events, it's going to get easier and easier and easier and easier to continue to fill them, because filling the events is always the issue. So shoots, that's my answer, bud. Big decisions quickly. Boom.
You talked about that future frame. It's what comes to mind for me, because I've been doing my morning walks. I'm going for about 45-50 minutes every morning, and listening to a lot of Joe Dispenza at the moment.
Oh yeah, I love it.
Yeah. It's amazing how it's all the same. Like, there's so many people talking the exact same language, just repackaged slightly different. You know what I mean? Like, but Joe talks about that too, in terms of just almost the manifestation, but not even that. It's just knowing what it is that you actually want and having the clarity on it, and then like naturally being drawn towards it, right? How the mind can't decipher between reality and what you're telling it. So that's just, and stepping into that, and then letting the things come into you. It shouldn't be a massive, how am I phrasing this? Like a challenge. It should almost, you should flow with it, go with the flow of it, and let things naturally evolve. And then when challenges come up, know that they're part of that journey, and just, okay, there's something, that a fear, oh my God, I've got to do a live presentation. Okay, just acknowledge that feeling, but know that that's the next step that you have to take, and that's going to be the next piece of your growth. So anyways, Joe Dispenza having an effect on the road dog here.
Yeah. Well done. I love it.
Oh, it's
good stuff.
But
shit, if I could just jump in, what you started that with is that, you know what I mean? You need to know what you want, right? That's the big, without that, Joe Dispenza's stuff isn't going to work. Right. Well, Case, guess what? That's a decision. And the hardest decision you'll ever make, one of the most difficult things you'll ever do, is decide what it is that you want. And that's a decision. And do it from out a place of anxiety and frustration and a place of weakness. You got to do it from a place of courage and a place of strength and a place of, I'm going to bloody well pull this off and get my outcome, come hell or high water. And I understand that my best is not good enough. So what I'm committing to do is what it takes. I think there's power.
So on that, and again, this leads back to our conversation earlier today. When we say, like, what do you want? And somebody tells you, because you called me out pretty quick on it, was, I just, joy and happiness. And you're like, whoa. But that isn't correct, right? And I'm like, oh shit, okay. So, because again, a lot of people are going to say that, like, Carl, all I want is just to have a good, happy life. Well,
Yep.
so you're saying that that's not enough?
I think it's the incorrect frame. So joy and happiness, first of all, it's ridiculously abstract and doesn't really exist, right? I think, and just, going back to our pre-show conversation, what drives Road Dog is when he's accomplishing something, when he's training for his marathon and then he pulls off his marathon, when he works out every day and now he takes his shirt off and he's got the outcome of looking in the mirror and going, you're really proud of what you see. It's putting together the proposal for the client and having them agree to it, sign off, hand over their credit card. It's working with the client and really moving the needle with the client. That's happiness and joy and fulfillment for Road Dog. And by the way, there's a lot of masculine energy going in there, a little bit different for the feminine women, and not in a good or bad or anything. It's just females are different than males, and that feminine energy is different than masculine energy, right? It's a 101. But that, you know what I mean? Like, I believe that joy and happiness is just not the outcome, not the North Star, not the outcome I think you should be trying to achieve. What we're trying to achieve is, as men, we are hunters and gatherers, right? Our lot in life is that we are designed to, I don't want to say experience pain, but to go through hardships. It's like your superhero. So your favorite superhero, right? Again, I think we went over this last week, but it's James Bond, or it's Superman, or it's Spider-Man, or it's Ethan Hawke. Who's that character out of a movie that you just totally love and just go, oh my gosh? Well, rewatch the movie and you're going to see that they spent 80% of their time in total turmoil, right? Like, again, it's the journey, and that's the life of an entrepreneur. Again, it's the video game. You play a video game, and if it was easy, you wouldn't go back and play the video game. You literally play the video game because it's hard. And as you accomplish, they just move you up levels, move you up levels, move you up levels. And again, if they didn't have more levels, you wouldn't go back and play. Think of that as business. You know what I mean? In order for it to be fun, you concentrate on moving up levels and accomplishing X, Y, Z in business, as opposed, and that, I believe, will bring you the joy, the happiness, the fulfillment, which is what I really think that would be the word I'd give for you. That's what you're looking to accomplish. So that's where that came from. And that's what I would say to a business coach who said the same to me.
Then that is interesting too. I remember there was, what was his name now? One of the podcasts, let me see if I can quickly find it here, but there was, Jordan Peterson. Oh, the Sean Ryan. He was having a chat with Sean Ryan. You know who he is, right? And talking about being a Marine and all that stuff. And Jordan Peterson made the comment of, well, yeah, like the suffering, right? That's where you find your happiness and end of it, right? It's just like, well, why do you want to be a Marine? Because of this. Well, isn't it like super hard and all the pain and suffering that you got to go through to get there? And he's like, well, yeah, but that's kind of the point. So it's much.
So you got to, okay, what you just said though, is you've got to embrace and enjoy the journey as opposed to the destination. Right. And by the way, once you get the destination, again, you get the client, you build the 7-figure company, you get the joint venture, you build the funnel, you bobble, whatever the outcome is that you're looking for. Well, guess what happens immediately afterwards? There's a new set of problems come your way, right? It's always the business coach. They're always looking to get those first 3 to 5 clients. And then they get they get 5 clients. And guess what? They've got a new problem now of managing the time between, the 5 clients and retaining them and helping them grow their business and still managing their own company and growing it and building relationships, et cetera. So it's like, it's just new problem. Again, you talk to Jeff Bezos, the guy's, let's call him semi-retired right now. I'm telling you, he wakes up every single day and you think, oh my God, he's got the helicopter and the boat and the supermodel wife and, fiance or whatever. Believe me, the guy has got a ton of problems that he needs to overcome. Like, he just does. And by the way, if he doesn't, knowing what Jeff Bezos's personality would be, he'd be dangerously unhappy, right? Because again, he's a hunter gatherer, right? And that's not to say, look, you can't take a little bit of time off. And it's not to say that everybody doesn't deserve a little bit of pause from the, the hustle and grind. I do. Look, there's a reason why a professional athlete goes flat out and the season is half the year, not the entire year, because you need time to recalibrate and get your juices flowing and, get back into preseason and get ready for another season. It's like, shoots, when we speak to somebody, right, and they're bragging that they've never taken a holiday. This is kind of the other side of it, right? Haven't taken a holiday in 3 years. I got to tell you, that's insanity, right? Because I will tell you this: when you go it, and we'll assume that that's a highly motivated person with like high expectations for themselves and their company. Otherwise, why would they have not taken a holiday in 3 years? Wouldn't make sense, right? So when you go on holidays, your goals and your dreams are always significantly bigger. And like, why is that? It's because you're on vacation and it's hard to look out at the ocean and listen to the waves and step onto the sand and see everybody having a good time and then not think at a higher level. Like it's in the air. Right. I remember I used to always go to, well, not always, but I've like been to Vegas numerous times, right? My dad used to live there for a long time, but I would always go walk by, like if you drop me in Vegas tomorrow, one of the first things that I'm doing is I'm going for a walk along the strip. Right. And then I'd walk into the Bellagio and, I just walk along the strip and I look up at those massive, massive hotels. And it just organically, what happens is my dreams and my goals and my vision become bigger. Right. So not taking a vacation is like a bad idea. Not taking a little bit of time off to recalibrate and, reset your sails, again, is a bad idea. So anyways, but I think where we got there, fall in love with the journey as opposed to the destination is what you were talking with the military folk there in the interview, right? It's like, that's the magic. Again, the movie is amazing because of the turmoil. Without conflict, there is no movie. Without conflict, there is no Three's Company. There is no Seinfeld episode. There is no Friends episode. Every single episode is based around the central theme of conflict in that particular show. So why wouldn't we embrace it in business? Because then again, we're trying to get past, accomplishing the goal is the 7 figures so that we can no longer have the quote unquote problems. Let's assume those are financial. Well, the reality is that when you accomplish it, you're just going to have a new set of problems, a new set of problems, a new set of problems. You're never getting away from them. So translation, frame, solution is to embrace the turmoil, embrace the journey the same way you do a video game. So that's my answer, Shoots.
Well, it's the whole thing. Okay, correct me if I'm wrong here, right? Because I would say 5, let's be conservative, % of the world is just sort of coasting and living in quote unquote easy life, right? Taking the easy path. So if you want to have an epic life, if you want to have that impact, you have to go that hero's journey. You have to have some adversity, and you have to embrace that and go, yeah, this suffering is the price that I need to pay, or better frame, that I get to pay in order to have that extraordinary life.
Nice. That high five, brother. And that is it. And you wouldn't be an entrepreneur because there are, and then to say that there aren't people, like I know a guy, he's retired and he describes it as heaven on earth, right? Again, wakes up, chill. The reality is that, like, I hear that and I speak to him, but I just know that would just never, I would go stir crazy without a battle, without the game, without problems to solve, goals for myself and targets. I just go nuts. Like, what happens when people retire? They die. It's well documented. It's not an opinion. It is absolutely scientifically proven that people retire and then they die. Well, reason, because they lose their sense of the one, in a sentence, they lose their sense of purpose. So there you go.
Right. So I kind of want to just dive into this just for a quick second here. I know that we're not running long yet, but I always looked at it for me, a big shift, like when I was doing my marathon training, right?
Yep.
Or when I was lifting, I wasn't just like, hey, you're gonna go work out. No, like I'm training. And because
Yeah.
we had a question come up, because I think you talked about this in one of your emails of studying versus training. Can
Yeah.
you right? Can you explain that difference? Because like for me on the sport, the athletic front, I get it. Like that's just it's a night and day difference between
Yep.
going for a run and training for something. But can you
Yep.
talk about studying versus training?
Okay. Agreed. Great question. Okay. So studying is listening to the podcast, listening to the YouTube video, doing the course, sitting in the room, attending the seminar, right? That's studying. Training is doing the same thing over and over and over and over and over again until it becomes second nature, right? So you just think of Tom Brady throwing the football. He doesn't throw the football a couple of times. I mean, he's throwing the football hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of times. And it's totally second nature. So when it's 2nd and 3 and he's got to throw it to his running back, it was just, he's just tossing it out. Right. Of course, now he's in the booth. I don't know how he's doing in that booth, by the way. Fox signed him for a lot of money, man. But I guarantee the way he's approaching it is he studied, but then he's training. I've got no doubt that he will, end up being a fantastic broadcaster. The way that he's not going to get there is not by studying. The way he's going to do it is by training, doing it over and over and over again until it becomes second nature. And he'll find his way well and truly. So anyway, that's a frame: studying versus training. Studying is doing the course, and then training is doing it over and over and over and over again until it becomes second nature. Reminds me like in life, right? You avoid the hard stuff, which frankly is easy to do, but you end up with a hard life, right? So what you practice intensely in private, you get rewarded for in public, is what they say, right? So like my daughter, she was Willy Wonka in her school play, right? So it's Willy Wonka. She had the lead. I got to tell you, we practiced that play every single night for, I don't know how long, but a couple of months. So much so that, I mean, she didn't just know her lines. She knew everybody else's line almost in the entire playbook. The same way, and the entire play, the same way that Tom Brady didn't just know the playbook from the quarterback standpoint. He could tell you where the running backs go, where the slot back go, where the tight end lines up, where the wide receiver lines up, the route that they do on every single play, including just the handoff, right? Or it's like, Steph Curry, he's the greatest 3-point shooter of all time. He practices, I don't know what it is, but like 500 3-pointers every single day, right? So again, maybe the translation there, you want to train like a professional athlete. Or like, it reminds me of golf, right? Like, if you want to learn to putt in golf, what do? Stand 1 foot away from the hole and putt it in, and then go 2 feet away from the hole, putt it in, and then go 3 feet from the hole and putt it in, and then 5 foot, and then 10 foot, and then you'll end up doing the 15-foot putts, right? What do most people do? Just picture somebody, you don't need to be a golfer to picture somebody, dropping themselves on the green, and they start putting from where? Like 10 to 15 feet away, right? So that again, and I would dare say I've never seen Tiger Woods in training, but I got to tell you, even at his level, I would dare say that he's starting at 1 foot, 2 foot, 3 foot, 4 foot, 5 foot, and then moving back, right? So why? So that it just becomes instinctual. Like consistency and then intensity is maybe what I'm trying to say there. And by the way, how do you increase the intensity? Instead of hitting, so you take 5 balls and put them 1 foot away, and then you take 5 balls and put them 2 feet away, and then you take 5 balls and put them 3 feet away, etc. Okay, so that would be an example of increasing the intensity when you're trying to learn how to putt, right? Because like science clearly states that discipline is a muscle, right? So train yourself to do hard things, maybe like we were talking about earlier, making hard decisions quickly, like train yourself on doing it the same way that you can train yourself to go to the gym. Don't train yourself to go to the gym for the hour if you're not, the gym junkie. Train yourself to drive to the gym automatically, put on your shoes, walk in, and magically, guess what? You'll end up doing a decent workout, right? Or maybe for you, it's waking up at 5:30 a.m. Maybe it's having a cold shower. It's jumping in the cold plunge. Like I remember back in the day, I used to take my daughter when we lived in Canada. I used to take her out into the middle of the lake on our Sea-Doo, and we go to the middle of the lake, and I would turn off the Sea-Doo and say, "Guess what time it is?" And we both had to jump into the water, which was incredibly cold, right? And again, at this stage, she's like 6, 7, 8 years old. Do you think that she wanted to jump into the cold water? Do you think she started trying to negotiate with daddy? Well, yeah, daddy, but look, let's do this. Can we do that? Maybe we'll do it next time. Next time I'll jump in twice. And I would just wave the key and say, baby, that key is not going into that Sea-Doo until you jump in the water. So best just to do it. Why was I doing that? As I say that, maybe a little, my poor little 7-year-old. But at the end of the day, I'm doing that to train her. And I still reference it many a times when I'm talking to her, to do the hard things quickly. I'm just like, look, just get it over with. Right. So, and again, for you, you know what, this might be, again, going to the gym, jumping in the cold plunge, jumping in the cold shower. If you don't have a cold plunge, just put really, really cold water in your tub, right? I guarantee, depending upon where you live in the world, but there's a really, really good chance that's going to be bloody cold, right? So that would do it, right? So anyway, so just, do the stuff. And, Mike, we talked about taxes last week. I got some feedback on that. Like, again, you might taxes and finance is something that really makes you sweat bullets and you're just not comfortable with it. And you're not just, you're not good at math and you've got that story in your head. Well, what does that tell you? That's the thing that you need to dive into, right? So anyway, and for the business coach, maybe, it's reach out to the joint venture. It's go to the networking event. It's start your own networking event. It's announce your live event. It's decide to do the live event, go down to the Chamber of Commerce, pull out your credit card, hand it over, and, pay for your live event, right? It's, that client that's ghosting you, right? Email them with an idea. I sent out an email about 2 or 3 weeks ago now, timestamp this, but and I basically just said, here's an example of an email that I would send to somebody who was, basically ghosting me. And is it magic? No. Is it going to work every time? Absolutely not. But at least now you've sent it. It's done. There you go. Rather than belabor it and then let 1 week pass, 2 weeks pass. And now it's like, oh my gosh, they've ghosted me. And by the way, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks have passed. Does it even make any sense to now reach out to this individual? Right? It's like, just send the damn email and then, remember, in coaching, speaking of decisions, a maybe is a no, right? They don't go and speak to their wife and then magically, oh my God, okay, cool. Let's get started. Let's get started. Although that does happen, but we want to play the percentages and not play with nuances. We want to play with probabilities, right? So get that damn deal done with the intensity of the appointment, the intensity of the audit, the intensity of the framework where you ask them the questions and they answer and then say, look, do you want to buy my coaching? Right? Close them then and there. Don't do your best. Do what it takes. Anyway, so then, and then it's like 80. So I think 80-20 as far as training. Everybody will tell you that they understand it, right? But the problem is that if they're not doing it, they don't actually know it, right? So do 80-20 is like automation. Do it as training, right? I've used 80-20 as a mental model, just over and over and over again. So organically, my mind automatically just goes to 80-20, right? So you ask me a question, you send me a proposal, you've got an idea for me. It's time to make I got to make a business decision. I use 80-20 as the framework, right? So that's an example of training for your brain where you bring me something and then I automatically run through 80-20. I said, is this the 20 that represents the 80? And then I'm making decisions as to whether or not I'm moving the ball forward. If we're doing a call, if we're going to have a meeting, if I'm going to jump on your calendar, I'm going to send you my calendar link, etc. Right. So, and by the way, the translation of that, we've talked about this many, many a times. We haven't done as much lately as we used to do, but build up a framework of mental models to run questions, decisions, and solutions through. It's like a question, is this a domino that's going to knock over other dominoes, right? Is this specific task one you're going to need to do all of the time? Or is this a priority that I need to deal with now? and use your mental models to help you get to the point where you can make that decision in an intelligent way. And again, do it over and over and over and over again. And all of a sudden that will be like training for your brain so that you'll do it instinctively. Initially, though, you've got to study mental models and understand which are the mental models that you're going to be using, which ones make sense for you. And there's literally hundreds of them, right? And by the way, I would just give you mine. But see, the thing is, again, I've got, there's just different things that I'm going through in my business and my phase of life, etc., that may or may not be appropriate for you, right? But I will tell you that 80-20 is one of the ones that I do believe, you'll struggle mightily to push me off whether or not that should be a mental model that you should be doing. And by the way, not just speaking to you, but through you to your coaching clients, the chiropractor, the dentist, the butcher, the baker, the candlestick maker. Again, getting them to ask those questions. Is this a domino that's going to knock over other dominoes? Is, accepting this meeting, doing this thing, taking on this product, taking on this service, expanding into XYZ, again, having a meeting with this individual, is this, are we handling something that is a domino that's going to knock over other dominoes? Are we going to be handling something that is part of the 20 that represents the 80 and maybe potentially the 1% that represents the 50%? Because remember, 80-20, when you go deep, you go 80-20, 80-20, 80-20, 80-20, you end up at 150, right? So like 1%, 1% of the population own 50% of the, like 1% of people's net worth, the Jeff Bezos, the Bill Gates, Mark Zuckerberg's, etc. 1% of them own 50% of all the equity of all the, the money in the world, right? So the 80-20 is not an opinion. It is a universal principle that you nor your clients are getting away from. So anyways, but they'll always tell you they know it, but then they're not living it, so they don't know it. So they've studied it, but they haven't trained on it, right? So that's maybe where I'm trying to get to. Like, they're studying and training. Studying is learning it, but then training is doing it over and over and over and over and over and over again until it becomes second nature for you and your clients. And they're categorically different. Everybody knows how to throw a football. It's not complicated. You studied it because you just watched somebody throw a football and now you know. But in order for it to be instinctual and for you to be able to, nail, somebody runs a slant and you can put the ball into their hands, that's going to take training. That's you throwing the ball over and over and over and over and over again so that you can flick the wrist properly and land it in their hands. So anyway, studying versus training. I think that's a great question. It's a great frame. And I hope that our coaches will adopt it as a framework.
All right, man. Let's button this bad boy up. Close us out. Give us the one thing. I know we feel, but maybe it's decision making. Maybe it's maybe that's it. I don't know. Like, that seemed to be a theme here, but
what I think it is, it's anxiety versus courage. I don't know if I did the best job of explaining that. But like, again, you can make decisions from a place of anxiousness, right? Or you can make decisions from a place of courage. A decision made from a weak place is probably a bad decision. A decision made from a strong place is probably a really good decision. What do you got to do? You got to get yourself into a strong mental state. And then you need to make hard decisions quickly, which, by the way, everybody, so that's studying. I explain it, you get it. But the training of it is you doing it over and over and over and over and over and over again. So you get comfortable making big decisions quickly, big decisions quickly, big decisions quickly. And if it's not working out, guess what? You recalibrate, change directions. And by making the decision, now you know. If you didn't make the decision, how would you have ever known? Right? Like, you don't know, and you just stay in this anxious loop that nobody wants to be in. So anyway, so that's anxiety versus courage. Get yourself and get your clients to a place of courage. And by the way, then as you're remember, we started with, you want to make a big decision. What's the upside? What's the downside? Can you live with the downside? And then you're thinking about, the answers to these big decisions, or the ones that you make and the ones that you don't make, and the ones you say yes to and the ones you say no to. And it's like, what's the truth? What's real? What's the right thing to do is a powerful frame, right? What's the right thing to do for me, for my family, for my clients, for my company, for my products, for my services, etc. So there you go, Shoots. That's what I would say.
So said differently, would you say that the anxiety of making a decision is perhaps based on an uncertainty of the future, and perhaps you need to spend more time being clear on defining what you want your future to be like?
Okay.
If you're more clear on the future that you so badly say you want, then the decisions should actually be quite easy to make.
Yes, because there's probably decisions, like there's problems that you're handling, situations that you're dealing with that you wouldn't need to if you had done the hard work to make the decision on exactly what you want, because that's a domino that knocks over other dominoes. Right? So again, so you make that decision and all of a sudden it becomes a foregone conclusion that you wouldn't deal with X, Y, Z. Right? That's it.
Right.
Like
Right.
maybe, I don't know if this is the best example, but do you know how much time people spend searching for jobs and looking at real estate online? It would literally blow your mind, right? So the decision that knocks over all the decisions is that, okay, my family is happy in this neighborhood. My family is happy in this home. I'm happy in this home. It's already paid off, or it's almost paid off, or we're comfortable here. So we are not moving for 1 decade. But what we are going to do, we're going to put an extension on, and we're going to add an extra room so that our teenager isn't driving us crazy and we're not driving him or her crazy. But the decision is made that we are putting all resources, time, energy into staying in this home, and we're not moving for 10 years. That would be an example, a good one, a bad one, but like that's an example of a domino that will knock over all the other dominoes. Or somebody, again's got a job, and I know we're dealing with entrepreneurs, right? But like you decide that you are just going to make the best of this job, and you are going to be there for the next 10 years. And what you are going to do is you are going to move your way up the totem pole. And that's the decision that you make. And then all of a sudden, searching the job ads and searching the internet, and quite frankly, wasting an insane amount of time. Like some people, scroll Facebook endlessly. Well, other people, scroll the, real estate. And then there's the folks checking their stocks continually. And then they're checking their crypto continually. If you just decide that you bought crypto and then you're not selling it for 10 years, come hell or high water, and what you're going to do is you're going to dollar cost average your crypto. So you're going to take $100 a week, or $1,000 a week, or $200 a week, and in a month and a quarter. But every single week you're going to put $100 into Bitcoin, which, by the way, may or may not be a good idea. You decide. But you know what I mean? By making that decision, you'll knock over a bunch of other dominoes. So then it's irrelevant for you to sit there, and worry about whether or not Bitcoin's price is going up and down, which could, it trades 24/7. It's dangerous, right? And it just sucks the energy, and you got a finite amount, of time, resources, effort, etc. Spend it on moving the ball forward. So make a decision. So you're going to run a local live event every week for the next 52 weeks, the end. Okay, guess what? All of your time, money, resources, effort, idle scrolling time on Facebook goes bye-bye, and it just all goes towards putting 10 people in the room every single week and building relationships that make sense, that would help you move that ball forward.
Okay, can I jump in?
Yeah, man.
Not to continue down this rabbit hole, but it's a pretty fun rabbit hole, is by just simply saying, hey, dude, I'm going to do an event come hell or high water every week with 10 people. That's not enough, though, is it? Do you have to have something deeper behind as to why you're doing that?
Okay, then we would come to purpose. And again, that's a domino that knocks over, but we'll assume that we've already got there, because you want to make a dent on the local community, because 90% of businesses fail, and you're sick and tired of speaking to business owners that are struggling. When a business owner is struggling, they're not showing up as a spouse. They're not showing up as a parent. They're not showing up as a friend. They're not showing up in a bunch of different ways that they want to be showing up. And then that eats, and then there's an identity conversation that would go there. You know what I mean? So yeah, so that higher level purpose, but you decide that you want to make a dent and impact local statistics of businesses failing, and the decision that you are going to make in order to do that, because you can do anything, but you can't do everything. The decision that you make is that you are gonna impact the business community locally, 10 businesses at a time, and the way that you're going to do it every Tuesday at 7 a.m. at the Chamber of Commerce with 10 business owners. And
Okay,
you're
so
going to blow their mind.
let's just real quick back and forth on this one though. So why should I care about local business? Why would that drive me? Why would that be a thing that I actually care about, Karl?
That you got to speak to the individual, but
Yeah.
if you're a business coach, why are you doing, you know what I mean? Then I got to say, well, why are you doing what you do? You know what I mean? If you don't want to impact local business owners, and help them become more successful, then you ultimately win, but that you need to be secondary big time, right? You always do more for others than you do for yourself. You know what I mean? Like then I would need to get to what drives the individual that's not motivated by that. And then I would potentially come to the solution that they're in the wrong industry. They're doing the wrong thing.
Gotcha. Okay. And is there a frame there in terms of a series of questions? Is it just asking yourself why? Like, why do you care?
No, define your purpose. That's where that's the domino. Define what drives you? What's your purpose?
And where would you say somebody's purpose typically stems from?
So, child, but go to your 3 most painful experiences that you've had in your lifetime, and there's a big part of it lying right in there. I've always said, people don't become business coaches by accident. You know what I mean? There's just something there that's driving them. Because when you want to serve at the level that a business coach is required to serve, there's an insatiable, there's something there's a hole inside of them they're looking to fill, hopefully in a good way, probably in a good way. But yeah, that's, you know what I mean? You gotta go back to your purpose. Like, why does it really, like, marriages break up? Like my story again, my family went completely sideways, epic proportion. At the end of the day, I grew up in an entrepreneurial family, right? And you're talking to the youngest child, and it was turmoil on steroids, and not the fun kind of turmoil, the hell kind of turmoil, that resulted in deaths and, family members not talking to one another. So there's just an insatiable appetite inside of me that I just want to make a dent, for entrepreneurs. And then the vehicle that I chose is, rather than go straight to chiropractors and dentists, what we do is we use business coaches to go to that audience, and I create the framework.
Would you agree, Karl, that sometimes your purpose in life doesn't come until later in life?
I would agree with that. I don't think it needs to be that. I just don't think that most people are a little bit immature for extended periods of time, which is not necessarily a bad thing. I don't, remember, the goal is to have a great life. Again, so define what a great life is, which is going to, again, freedom is going to fall into that. How do you define it? But I would say that people often, it's a maturity thing, right? It's just a lot of people are a little bit, you know what I mean? Like, they're just not thinking along those lines. You know what I mean? That's what I say there. So I'd agree with it.
I don't want to belabor this at all, but one thing that I guess I've discovered, and I'm sure you'd agree with, is a lot of, especially local home service providers, home service or businesses.
Yep.
They get into it because it's like they were working for somebody else and they figured, oh, I can do it better than them. So would you maybe agree that the failure rate is perhaps as high as it is when it comes to small business is because they're not going into it with a true purpose behind it besides a financial one?
Yeah.
Just sort of came to me. That's all. I just sort of thought, like, that's interesting, because then, it'd be like, well, why are you really, right?
Yeah, but it's not different for the dentist, because again, the dentist goes to the school, work for somebody else, and then decides to put their shingle out, right? the, chiropractor goes to school, goes to work for somebody else, and then decides to go put their shingle up because they think they can do it better. Well, I think that their purpose is that what they say to themselves with fair consistency is, I can do it better, right? They believe that they can serve the clients at a higher level and they can do it better. They can, quite possibly they think they can do it less expensive and provide more value. So then that becomes their purpose, that they really want to impact people through chiropractic. And the vehicle that they choose is to, okay, well, I'm going to start my own chiropractic clinic so I can start calling my own shots, because I've been going to my boss and I've been telling him we want to do back talk, every Thursday in the back room. And he's not allowing me, the resources and the time, et cetera, in order to fill those events and to do those events that I think are really, really important. Because I believe that everybody needs chiropractic, but they don't know that things they know, things they know, they don't know, and things they don't know, they don't know. They don't know that they need a chiropractor, right? So you put them in the room and then you educate them. So then you connect something they now do know with something they don't know, and they don't know how to do chiropractic on themselves, but they do know that being able to touch their toes later in life is a really, really good idea for a variety of different reasons. So then that becomes their purpose, that becomes their drive. But then they fail in business, which is a totally different conversation, because they're a good chiropractor, they're a good dentist, they're a good roofer, they're a good builder, they're a good carpenter. They're good at, solving pest control issues, but they're not good at the business, which is why we exist and why I built the software I did. So
I like what you did there, Shoots. Back talk in the back room. That's the ultimate dad joke there. But right there, and I'm just going to end on that note, is you make a good point. Even if, and this, because again, we run into this a lot where it's like, well, I just think I can do it better. Well, why do you care to do it better? Why did you care to take on the risk of starting your own thing? You knew it wasn't going to be easy. Why did you do that? What is missing? What was missing that you believe needs to be done? And I think when we could drive into that with our coaching clients, I think that then we can get a lot more buy-in from them.
Yeah. Okay. So I just want to answer. So when you said that people come up with that's a good example. The chiropractor is a good example of coming up, developing and creating and understanding this purpose later in life. And it's not that it's later in life, it's that they need the experiences in order to realize, okay, here's what I'm destined to do. Here's what, and they don't just start a chiropractic clinic. In many cases, what they'll do, they'll start a little health business, right? And they'll bring in the naturopath, and then they'll bring in the physiotherapist, and then they'll do chiropractic in one of the rooms. And they feel that, that's the solution that they're going to bring, but it takes, immaturity might've been the wrong way of explaining it. It's lack of experience. They need to go through all of that to get the experience to say, here's my purpose. This is what I'm going to do. This is why I want to do it.
Well, there you go, folks. And ironically, this episode is now dragged on for close to an hour, when Karl and I specifically had a conversation at the beginning of this podcast saying that we were going to try and keep it to 30 minutes. So there you go. Never say never, Shoots. Never say never.
There you go.
All right, everybody. Well, thanks for tuning into another episode of Business Coaching Secrets. If you're not on the inside and getting access to the pre-show, or you aren't getting Karl's daily emails, or just want more information on how to grow, build, and scale your coaching company, visit focused.com and subscribe today. Also, if you enjoyed this podcast, please like and subscribe, and also share with a fellow coach, as we are trying to make our impact on as many coaches as possible. And while you're at it, please feel free, leave us a review. That is it for another week. We will see you in the next episode. And remember, folks, progress equals happiness. Take care, everybody.
Karl Bryan built Profit Acceleration Software 2.0. So as a business coach, you'll never again have to worry about working with business owners that can't afford your high-end coaching fees. Check us out at focused.com.